Good morning. My name is Karen Seymour-Ells, and I serve as a trustee here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church, coming to you in high def this morning. They have promised not to zoom in too closely. We want to welcome everyone to our open and inclusive virtual community today. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and we pledge to support one another as we walk those paths. We are so glad you were able to find us and join us for our live stream service today. Please check the church website at DuPageUUChurch.org for updates. If you search under DuPage UU Church on Facebook, you will find other ways to be in community with us as well. This morning, we have our incredibly popular coffee hour after the service. So join us for Zoom coffee hour at 11:30. You probably got an email about this. There were some communications sent out. Check your email. It was super fun 2 weeks ago when we did it, and there will be people there to help you and moderate for you. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Caroline Bailey, a longtime member here at the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. As we light our chalice this morning, we invite you to light your chalice at home with these words from Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Our opening hymn is "O Life That Maketh All Things New." We will start with verses 1 and 2, and please join us in our congregation's spoken affirmation, followed by the sung affirmation.
spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
It is time to gather, and today I have a story about a king who had the good life, but he didn't realize it, and he wanted more. And we're going to hear about the consequences of him trying to change things. This is Bartholomew and the Oobleck.
They still talk about it in the kingdom of Did as the year that King Derwood got angry with the sky. And they still talk about the page boy Bartholomew Cubbins. If it hadn't been for Bartholomew Cubbins, that king and that sky would have wrecked the little kingdom. The king was unhappy that there were only 4 boring things that fell from the sky. All spring, when the rain came down, he growled at that. All summer, when the sunshine came down, he growled at that. All autumn, when the fog came down, he growled at that. And that winter, when the snow came down, he started shouting. Bartholomew Cubbins tried to tell the king that he could not change things that fell from the sky. The king replied, "Boy, how dare you tell me what I can or cannot have? Remember, Bartholomew, I am king." "I know, sire," said Bartholomew. "You rule all the land and all the people, but even kings can't rule the sky." "Bartholomew Cubbins," demanded the king, "blow my whistle. Quick, call my royal magicians." "Your magicians, your majesty?" Bartholomew shivered. "Oh no, your majesty, don't call them." "You hold your tongue, Bartholomew Cubbins. You do as I command. Blow my whistle." So Bartholomew took the king's whistle from its secret hook. He blew a long, low blast down the king's back secret stairway, and a moment later he heard them coming. Shuffle, duffle, muzzle, muff, fista, wista, mista, cuff. We are men of groans and howls, mystic men who eat boiled owls. Tell us what you wish, O king. Our magic can do anything. "I wish," spoke the king, "to have you make something fall from my skies that no other kingdom has ever had before. What can you do? What will you make?" For a moment, they stood thinking, blinking their creaky eyes. Then they spoke one word: "Oobleck." "Oobleck," asked the king, "what will it look like?" "Won't look like rain, won't look like snow, won't look like the fog, that's all we know. We just can't tell you any more. We've never made Oobleck before." And they bowed, and they started toward the door. "We go now to our secret cave on Mystic Mountain, Maketh. There all night long we'll work for you, and you'll have Oobleck when we're through." And all night the magicians walked circles round their magic fire, making magic mumblings with their clucking tongues. In the kingdom of Did, Bartholomew awoke from his sleep and looked out the window. No! There was something strange up in the sky. It was swirling around the topmost turrets of the palace. Tiny little greenish specks were shimmering in the air right over his head. Little greenish blobs just about the size of grape seeds. "Wake up, your majesty," he shouted. "Your oobleck, it's falling." And the king sprang out of his royal bed sheets. "By my royal whiskers it is," he cried. "Oh, that beautiful oobleck, and it's mine, all mine." "I don't like the looks of those blobs, sire," said Bartholomew. "They're coming down now as big as greenish peanuts." "The bigger the better," laughed the king. "Oh, what a day! I'm going to make it a holiday. I want every man, woman, and child in my kingdom to go out and dance in my glorious oobleck." "Out in that stuff?" asked Bartholomew. "Do you really think it's safe, sire?" "Stop asking foolish questions," snapped the king. "Boy, you run to my royal bell tower. Wake my royal bell ringer and tell him to ring the great holiday bell." Across the sleeping palace Bartholomew ran. "Ring your bell," he called. "His Majesty the King proclaims today a holiday." The old man crawled out of his cot. He grabbed the bell rope. "What's the holiday for, Bartholomew?" "You'll find out soon enough," said Bartholomew. The bell ringer yanked the rope. Nothing happened. He yanked it harder. Still nothing happened. "Huh! What's wrong with my bell?" he murmured. "I better take a look outside." He poked his head out through the little trap door. "Merciful gracious," he gulped. "What is that all over my bell like greenish molasses?" "Not only your bell," Bartholomew cried. "Look at that poor robin down there in the tree. She's stuck to her nest. She can't move a wing. That oobleck's gooey, it's gummy, it's like glue." "Someone's got to warn the people," cried Bartholomew. To the trumpeter's tower raced Bartholomew Cubbins, and on up the steps, 4 stairs at a time. He yanked the covers off the snoring trumpeter. "Get up! Warn the people! Blow the alarm!" "Alarm?" yawned the trumpeter. Then his eyes saw the oobleck. The royal trumpeter leapt from his bed. "That king of ours should be ashamed." And he jabbed his trumpet out the window. "I'll blow," he shouted, "the loudest alarm that has ever been heard in the kingdom of Did." But all the royal trumpeter blew was a glug. "My horn," he gulped. "One of those green things flew inside it." And he tried to blow it out, and he couldn't blow it out. He tried to shake it out, and he couldn't shake it out. "I'll get it somehow," he yelled. "I'll pull it out." "No!" shouted Bartholomew. "Don't you touch it." "I can't wiggle a finger," the trumpeter wailed. "Oh, Bartholomew, what do I do?" "I don't know, and I hate to leave you stuck in your horn, but if you can't warn the people of the kingdom, I've got to find someone who can." And out of the room and down the stairs raced Bartholomew Cubbins. "I'll get the king's horse. I'll ride through the country. I'll warn the people of the kingdom myself." And he pushed open the door that led out to the royal stables. Bartholomew stopped. He could go no further. The awful oobleck was plumping down as big as greenish footballs now. There was nothing Bartholomew Cubbins could do out there. Shaking his head sadly, he stepped back inside. But inside, a moment later, it was just as bad as out. With an angry roar, the oobleck was suddenly hitting the palace harder. It was battering and spattering against the walls as big as greenish buckets full of gooey asparagus soup. Everywhere Bartholomew ran, he saw someone stuck to something. The king. Where was the king? He'd forgotten all about him. It was in the throne room that Bartholomew found him. There he sat, old King Derwin, proud and mighty ruler of the kingdom of Did, trembling, shaking, helpless as a baby. His royal crown was stuck to his royal head. The seat of his royal pants were stuck to his royal throne. "Fetch my magicians, Bartholomew," he commanded. "Make them say some magic words. Make them stop the oobleck falling." Bartholomew shrugged his shoulders. "I can't fetch them. Your Majesty, their cave on Mountain Maketh is buried deep in Oobleck. Then I must think of some magic words, groaned the king. Bartholomew Cubbins could no longer hold his tongue. It's going to keep on falling, he shouted, until your whole great marble palace tumbles down. So don't waste your time saying foolish magic words. You ought to be saying some plain, simple words. Simple words? What do you mean, boy? I mean, said Bartholomew, this is all your fault. Now the least you can do is say the simple words, I'm sorry. What? He bellowed. Me? Me? Say I'm sorry? Bartholomew looked the king square in the eye. You may be a mighty king, he said, but you're sitting in Oobleck up to your chin, and so is everyone else in your land. And if you won't even say you're sorry, you're no sort of king at all. You're right. It is all my fault. And I am sorry. Oh, Bartholomew, I am awfully, awfully sorry. And at the moment the king spoke these words, something happened. The Oobleck that was stuck on all the people and all the animals of the kingdom of Did just simply, quietly melted away. And then, they say, Bartholomew took the old king by the sleeve to the bell tower, and the king himself rang the holiday bell and proclaimed a brand new national holiday in honor of the 4 perfect things to come down from the sky. The king now knew that these 4 old-fashioned things, the rain, the sunshine, the fog, and the snow, were good enough for any king in all the world, especially for him, old King Durward of Did.
Good morning. Some of you may know the magazine called The Sun, which is one of my favorite. And I'd like to share with you a poem by Alison Luterman in a section called Already True, a selection of poetry for these times. And this poem is called Small Talk. At least once a day, I trudge up 38th, take a right on Neville, and wind around the little green patch of park past empty tennis courts and the deserted soccer field, where right now a masked man is playing with a remote control race car all by himself. I plod up Brookdale, wearing my own mask. Anonymous, featureless, I am free to be anyone, a bank robber, or a surgeon, or a biblical bride tricking my unsuspecting groom into marrying the wrong sister. Although, as I climb the hill and start to sweat, I confess I pull the thing down for some air. When I see someone walking toward me, we do our pandemic do-si-do, one of us dancing off the sidewalk to avoid the other. Beautiful day, says the stranger. Yes, yes, the roses, I reply, and we wave from afar. This talk I used to call small in the days I used to call ordinary. March, April, May, June 2020. It may be the height of hubris to offer any words to you on the subject of the good life during a worldwide pandemic. Maybe a better title would be how I'm coping. And yet I think that's what most of us are asking ourselves. What am I going to do? What kind of good life can I recover or create, given the realities in front of me? I offer you 3 approaches this morning. I tend to cycle back and forth between the 3 of them, depending on the circumstances and my mood. In my mind, each has a valid place. Just as a tool set has a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench, just as my kitchen set has a knife and a spatula and a ladle. Option 1, fight back. I think of my mother who grew up in the Depression, went to college during World War II, worked making Atabrin for the soldiers in the Pacific to fight malaria. She started to go deaf as she turned 70, and she had a hard time with it. She'd already dealt with the sudden death of my dad and other chronic illnesses. They sent her to a psychiatrist. He told her that getting older was a series of losses and she just had to accept it. She told me she got mad at him and told the psychiatrist that there were also gains in getting older. More time, less responsibility, a son-in-law, a grandchild, opportunities to write. Then she got herself a really good state-of-the-art hearing aids, an amplified phone, learned some lip reading, and did her business by email long before I was even on AOL. She coped pretty well. So, faced with a pandemic, economic recession, societal injustice, and your life now. This is not what you expected or planned. This option says, meet it head on. Plan, complain, do something, organize. Do what you know works for you. Run, knit, or cook. Talk on the phone, waste some time. Tell jokes. Admire a line in a poem that makes you smile. Avoid what you know are traps. Enough said. Or do something entirely new. What would that be? What could you try? I would invite you to take a moment now to think about what you've been doing to cope these past months. What's worked? What do you want to do? Option 2, practice gratitude. Tried and true, recommended by therapists far and wide. Okay, make a list. Start with what I call the at least. At least it's spring. At least I can go outside. At least I have a job. At least I'm not alone. At least there's Zoom. At least. Then your gratitude list can go deeper. What have you discovered that you are grateful for that might not have occurred to you on that first glance? Wow, I have talked to my brother and sister more in the past 3 months than I did all last year. This is important. Wow, the flowers in our yard are beautiful. Hostas, beautiful. This is important. We have new neighbors. They have 2 kids. They're black. She's a Girl Scout leader. They are fostering a mother dog and 2 puppies. The dog is continually yapping all the time. It makes me laugh. This is important. I am needed at work. I am grateful that I am less scared of going into the emergency department than I was in March. This is important. I love poetry. I love reading poetry. Most days I start now by reading a poem to Robert or Robert to me. This is important. I am crying. Lots of people are crying. This is important. Please join us now in verses 3 and 4 of O Life That Maketh All Things New. The second poem I would like to share with you is entitled The Pandemic Halo by Jim Moore, also from The Sun magazine. The first time I saw it, it was above the head of an old lab. He was being walked, as usual, at 7 a.m. by his young owner. Lots of lamppost stops, as usual. There it was, faint at first, then hovering at a rakish tilt above his silky head. I thought maybe it was a weird trick of light. The day was bright. But then, the next morning, the nurse who parks across the street in the now almost empty lot was trotting along on her way to the clinic that's just below my window. She had it too. I don't think she noticed it at all. She was moving quickly, late to work. I imagine that was what was on her mind, not holiness. The third day, a young man in a red cap with a backpack slouched past. I had never seen him before. You could see that he was seriously depressed, looking down at the sidewalk. But there it was, firmly in place above him, so he couldn't see how beautiful he really was. By now, the pandemic halo is well recorded. We almost take it for granted. what once seemed so amazing. After the pandemic is over, they say the halo effect will disappear. They say we will return to life as usual. We won't need it. I have my doubts. I think we might need it more than ever. I think we might be saying things like, remember how incredible it was during the pandemic, how everyone had a halo, how grief and holiness were all we knew of the world, and the sight of a dog at a lamppost could bring us to tears. When neither of the other two ways of coping seem to be working, I am left with the option of acceptance. A little while ago, I saw a shirt advertised in a magazine. It said on the front of it, Wabi-Sabi, a Japanese word. I mentioned to Robert that I should get it, then I forgot about it. For those of you who don't know, I lived in Japan for 2 years after college, and at that time I got pretty good at Japanese. But a surprise, the shirt came in the mail earlier this week. Now I have no choice but to wear the path of acceptance. Wabi-Sabi is described as untranslatable, but it is translated on the front of the shirt. A way of living that focuses on finding beauty in the imperfections of life and accepting peacefully the impermanence of things. So the classic illustration of the first part of this definition of wabi-sabi is classically illustrated by the practice of mending pottery. Mending pottery by suffusing the glue with gold dust so that the crack line is not only visible but highlighted. Wabi-sabi is the beauty of a worn jacket with a frayed collar, something that's mended so as not to hide the tear, the rustic, the not polished. Andrew Juniper says, if an object or expression can bring about within us a sense of serene and melancholy spiritual longing, that object could be said to be wabi-sabi. I think this is what the poet Jim Moore was expressing when he writes in his poem about the pandemic halo. Everyday things, everyday actions, everyday people are broken every day, but they also can be broken open to reveal in glimpses both beauty and deep poignancy. These cracks, to quote Paul Tillich, point to the ground of our being, in his words. Some would call this the divine spirit, others the sense of life that knows no death, in our hymn. How grief and holiness were all we knew of the world. This, to me, is the unbearable beauty of the obituaries. The wabi-sabi definition on the shirt, however, continues. Accepting peacefully the impermanence of things. The Japanese do hold that the most beautiful things are those that will pass away, that are transient. Spring in Japan, of course, the cherry blossoms. Cherry blossoms are notorious for not blooming on any predictable schedule, and any sudden wind or rain can end the blooms. In Japan, as well as in Washington, D.C. area where I grew up, if you wanted to experience the cherry blossoms, you had to go right now, or they would be gone. That was their beauty, their fragility. Life has always been uncertain and beyond our control, but now there is a heightened sense of uncertainty and impermanence. Richard Powell says of the concept of Wabi-Sabi that it nurtures all that is authentic by acknowledging three simple realities. Nothing lasts, nothing is finished, nothing is perfect. I have to say, that's not what I want, but I rest in the acceptance of the impermanence of things. Then I circle around, fight back, gratitude, beauty in imperfection, again, acceptance. So be it. Even when we are apart in this congregation, we are together. An offering for the work of this congregation will be gratefully taken and received. This is the moment in our service where we pause to lift up the joys and concerns that are among us. If we were meeting in person, you would be invited to come forward to share with this, your church community. Since we are apart, I ask you to hold in your hearts all our silent joys and concerns. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation. This poem is by Lynn Ungar, a minister with the UU Church of the Larger Fellowship, published in the most recent UU World magazine. It's called Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel. Cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. You know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Join us now in our closing hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning. I leave you with the words of the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. Peace be with you.